should be good. We're recording for YouTube, and
You got like a little.
Nope. We're literally recording now.
Okay.
So here we are. This is Join My Pyramid Scheme, the podcast. We are drinking. What are these ones? They're apricot blondes. Who's the brewing company?
Dry Dog.
So Dry Dog Brewing Company, apricot blondes, and also Sippin' Pretty, a filtered sour from the Odell Brewing Company up in Fort Collins. Pretty good sour. Really like the apricot blonde. We're in Colorado. We're loving the fact that we have access to good beer again. I've got my little brother Matthew Hartshorn, and longtime friend from good old days at Colorado State ROTC, Kendal Peter.
Hey, how's it going?
So my kids are sleeping. Well, in reality, they're actually sleeping a little bit further away from the recording is what they normally are, because we're not in the camper. We are back at the parents' house in southeast Colorado. So we'll project a little bit. We can actually project a little bit more because those kids are used to sleeping through more volume than this. We're a little bit further into our drinking than what we are for most podcasts. Most podcasts, it's like the first or the only drink of the night, because I'm trying to keep it the tradition of the old, let's have a drink podcast days, where it starts out with reviewing a drink. Although we changed the name, I do want to keep with that. So it's a good theme. Started out as Let's Have a Drink podcast because it was calling up old friends and having a drink with them. And the more I did that, the more I felt like I was like calling up people to join a pyramid scheme, because it's always how it happens. You hear from people who you haven't talked to in 3 or 4 years, and they're like, hey, want to be your own boss?
Yeah, I was wondering about that actually. Did you wait to open your beer until the beginning of recording just so that way you could have the sound effect?
No, I was really just trying to get the phones set up so I'd have video and audio just right. And I was thinking about that more than opening my beer. But then when I realized that I was going to be opening my beer after we were recording, I was pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, okay.
Because the way I start it, every episode starts with Casey Donahue's White Trash Story 2. And do you know White Trash Story by Casey Donahue?
I think I've heard it.
My best friend Junior, he lives 2 trailers down. Well, White Trash Story 2 is still the whole trailer park thing. Got to get this trailer rolling downhill because I'm sick. If you listen to the podcast, you'll hear the intro song, but it fits the podcast perfectly because Nicole and I are living in a camper and kind of like first class white trash. Here we are living off of an Army officer's salary, like in a campground. But one thing is, an Army officer's salary does something a little different when you're a single income family than what it does when you're a single guy with a little more disposable income due to it. But let's get into the podcast. So Matthew is getting married on the 2nd of January. Right now it just turned into the 20th of December. So we are less than 2 weeks out from Matthew's wedding. Kendal is on his way back up to Arvada for leave, spend Christmas with his family. Currently in the captain's career course for artillery bullock. But what's on the docket today, boys? Aside from everything we talked about while we were upstairs drinking whiskey.
Should have the podcast going for that. It's a good conversation.
Yeah, it was, man. Also some stuff that we might not want on the record too.
So I think something we can talk about. Let's talk a little bit more about the camper situation, because that's something that I've been seeing a lot. In at least when I was at Fort Stewart and I had a soldier get married. Lucky guy, got to get out of the barracks, and first thing he does is say, "Hey, sir, I'm buying a camper." I said, "What kind of camper?" And he got a $23,000 camper, and he went off to the campground outside of Fort Stewart. So if you've ever been in Georgia, it's all trees. I mean, just like North Carolina.
Nope.
And about 10, 15 minutes away from the back gate is a little campground. For $300 a month, they get power, water, heat. There's a laundromat and a E5. So sergeant with one dependent was making $1,600 BAH. So $1,600 housing allowance, and this dude is only spending $300 of that to live. So what do you do with the other $1,300?
You make payments on the camper.
You make extreme payments on the camper, or for him, you buy more guns and gun parts.
And dude, so smartest soldier that I've heard of, considering that's what he did it once he got married. But so what really sold me on it was, here I am paying rent. My BH is going into rent, and sometimes my BH isn't enough to cover rent and utilities. And before I lived on post, so it wasn't even a thing. I just lived in this house with no expenses except for electricity, which if I didn't use all my electricity, I got a little bit of money back. If I used more than what I was allotted, then I got charged a little extra, but we never used more than what we were given. And then after all of a sudden the politicians cracked down on military housing, Army-wide, they decided, hey, unlimited electricity. You're not going to get charged any extra, you're not going to get any kickbacks. And at that point, I think a lot of people started mining for Bitcoin and getting personal hot tubs in their garages. At least that was my idea. I was like, if the Army's going to provide me unlimited electricity, I'm either going to mine for Bitcoin or I'm going to have a hot tub hidden away in the garage.
A lot of people in colleges do that too in dorm rooms because all their utilities is put in one sum fee, and so they'll mine for Bitcoin in their rooms.
Dude, those are smart kids. When you start to see where you have unlimited of anything and you capitalize on that, maybe some people would consider it unethical, but I think if you're gonna,
That's the beauty of capitalism.
yeah,
Baby.
if you're gonna charge me for something and give me an unlimited amount of something, then I'm gonna capitalize on it. But yeah, so when you're paying rent somewhere, you're paying for an experience. You're paying for every night that you don't have to sleep in the cold. You're paying for having that extra space that is yours. And I was watching all these YouTube videos, Sailing La Vagabond, their channel, and it's this couple who lives on a sailboat. Really neat Australian couple. They've got a kid, and I would love to have that freedom to sail, but I'm in the military. The lifestyle still appeals to me. And Nicole and I started thinking more and more about having a camper. At that point, we're not tied into being stuck somewhere for a year if we don't like the place. If we're somewhere we don't like it, we can pick up and move in less than 24 hours and be somewhere totally different with our home and keep the same routine. As long as we have power and a septic line, we're good to go. So we started looking around for campers, and man, the campers they have nowadays, my parents have a fifth wheel camper over in one of the sheds over there that they got 11, 12 years ago. I think I was in 8th grade, so it was 13 years ago they got this camper, and it's still a really nice camper. When I was looking at some of these bumper pull campers, everything they have, it's a sweet setup. Even the ones that don't have all the bells and whistles, they still look really nice to me. And I'd rather have way less square feet of space and have an area that I'm comfortable in, that I feel proud of, than to have a giant train wreck. Know what I mean? And so I could try to buy a house, actually buy a house, but I have no idea where I'm going to be living in the next 6 months, let alone 3 or 4 years down the road. So that's where Nicole and I decided, okay, we're gonna get a camper that we can sleep all of us in, and our BAH is gonna go to making payments on that camper. And after we're done making those payments, we have an asset, not just the experience of having a roof over our heads, but we actually own something that's 100% ours. So that we got that camper for less than 30,000, and it sleeps all 3 kids. It's got room for more, and man, we keep the same routine. It's just it's a fun way to live. It really is. And there's something about I know I was not meant to live in a suburb, and not meant to have next door neighbors who were gonna look at me funny when I was playing my guitar in the backyard or having a fire and stuff like that. I don't like the idea of having people in a campground. You have people right next to you all the time anyway, but there's a different expectation. You don't feel like you have to be dressed a certain way whenever you step out on your front porch. So maybe that makes me a little white trashy, but I'm still first class white trash, if you can't tell.
So one of the cool things about getting a camper is you're not looking for the right house in the right location. You're just looking for the right house for you. So once you decide on a camper, and it's funny because this resonates in my head because there's a couple of phrases that my boss always gives me. Right now with the current epidemic and ammo, it's you should have had it, or you should have already had it. But one of the things that he always tells me is define your requirements. So whenever I ask him something, he's like, hey, define your requirements. And I think when you get a camper, it's like, what are my requirements? Okay, so I want, my family's expanding. I have 3 kids now and a wife. I want maybe 5 kids. So we're gonna get the camper that has the amenities we want, the room that we want. And honestly, buying a house that costs, shoot, in Colorado, you buy a house for $150,000, and that's like a crappy house in Colorado.
Yeah,
That's
like 2-bedroom.
if you spend $150,000 on a camper, you're getting the most premium camper, way nicer than what Cody Poos has, and you're still on the plus end. You're still not doing too bad. And then, like you said, you can pick up and move. So you go to one campground, let's say somebody moves in and you don't like this person and they're making your life kind of hell while you're living there, you can go find another spot. The nice thing is, I think a lot of Army posts now is they have campgrounds. Fort Stewart had 2 different campgrounds, and that was in the area, the 198,000 acres that Fort Stewart owned, but there's also campgrounds around. So I think it's an awesome idea if you're okay with living small and living simple. Unfortunately for me, I have so much material stuff when it comes to my personal trailer, my guns, my deep freezer, my tools. I'll never live in a camper, but I absolutely envy people who can do that.
Well, so we're Nicole,
space.
we're a family of 5, so we've definitely accumulated things, and we sold a lot of stuff before we moved in the camper. We had people coming over to our house every day, for a week and a half straight, because I sold my kayak, I sold my weight set. Nicole, she's a master of selling things online. We made money off some of the stuff we sold. We had an inflatable raft, and we got it during the pandemic. Well, before everybody was buying watercrafts, but we got this raft, and we would just spend some time on the lake. We got it off of Amazon for $240, and we realized that there was no availability, and supply and demand. We sold it for $300. $300. We made $60 off of this raft that we used 3 times. And my kayak, I bought that thing for $220, and we sold that for $300, and made money off of something that I got use out of. So I don't know. We did have to sell some stuff in order to kind of make room so we'd have storage space, but yeah, we got a storage unit that we're spending money on it every month. But
it's how much is a storage unit? $45 a month, maybe.
This one was $80.
Like a climate control. Which
No,
is really
but
big.
yeah, it's just big enough.
Yeah.
It was big enough for all the furniture, for the motorcycle, for everything else that we have that we didn't want to get rid of. Because, you know, we have clothes for kids and plan on having more. So we're still like, even though I've got boys, we're still holding on to like our baby girl clothes because who knows what the next one's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, we figured out how to get rid of some of the bulkier items that we had and put the things that really, you know, we really wanted to keep into storage. So, that way if you really want to make it happen, you could.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, it's funny because I remember when Cody and Jess got their camper, and they just, anything that they didn't need, threw it up. Hey, this is all for sale. And I think that's like probably like a liberating experience to get rid of your tie, your addiction to these items, and being able to just be mobile, be on the move. And the cool thing is once it's paid off, and like those campers, they do retain a lot of their value as long as you take care of them. Granted, 3 to 5 kids may destroy the inside. However, there's always room to remodel and upgrade.
Yeah.
So funny story with my uncle on my mom's side. He at the age of 19, he actually started a steel business in Bozeman, and over the past 35-40 years, this steel business is actually one of the largest steel providers for Montana. So he built his business from nothing, and he decided it was time to leave. And they wanted him so bad. They wanted him to be like a kind of like an advisor for deals and stuff, and like to go over different contracts and make sure everything's good. And he said, if you want me to stay with the company, he's like, this is the kind of camper I need. This is the truck that I need to pull it, and I'll need satellite internet, like completely paid for, if you want me to work for you, because me and my wife, we're retiring and we are traveling the country. That's what we want to do. So what do? They went and spent $120,000 on a camper. They went and spent $90,000 on a 2018 3500 Chevy, and they modified it to have satellite internet, and that's what he does. He was in New Orleans last month. The month before that, he was in Utah. He was down in Florida like 3-4 months ago, and he's working from that. And like that camper is nicer than any house that I've ever been in, and it's spacious too. So like it's cool. And then if you do want to settle down, sell the camper, buy a house, and then settle down.
And you can make that happen in a week.
Yeah.
Like if you're done with being transient and just the tumbleweed lifestyle, you can end it instantly. But if you do have a house and you have those ties and you're kind of weighed down, it is a little harder. It's harder to make that transition as opposed to being a vagabond and not being a vagabond anymore.
Well, like with our, in our profession too, is like with officers, it's 3 to 4, maybe 5 years in one place, and like buying a house and then 3-4 years later selling it, or going through the whole process of doing a property management company and hoping that that company manages your property the right way. And you're also losing revenue because you got to pay them 10 or 20% of however much the rent is. And that's why rent's always way more expensive than a mortgage. That's why I say to buy a house. But being able to have that company manage it, it's kind of a pain in the ass, because especially if I buy a house in Savannah, Georgia, and then I move to Colorado, that's a $500 flight. If something goes wrong, and you got to go down there. I was seeing a girl in Fort Sill. She had a house in Austin, and they had renters jump ship middle of the month, moved out and left, and they destroyed the house on their way out. Like they're a big party. So as a homeowner, property management companies like, what do we do? And they actually get a lawyer and have to go down there and deal with that. So that's another thing, is like, if you can't sell your house, you just have to rent it. That's like something that could go wrong. But for me, the biggest issue for me is I like space. I like having a big house. I like having a big yard.
That house that you guys had outside of Stewart, what was the town out there?
Hinesville.
Hinesville, Georgia. Man, that place was a castle. Like,
dude,
for
absolutely.
2 guys to be living in that house.
3,000 square foot, 5-bedroom house for two lieutenants. And oddly enough, like we filled the space. I mean, like we had his room. His second room was like his game room. He had his office in there, his game, and his like most prized guns were closest to him. And then we had a spare bedroom with an air-up mattress, and then the fourth out of 5 bedrooms was our reloading room. And that was, I mean, to me, that was the coolest room in the house. Like, he had his bench set up, all the reloading supplies you would need, everything you need to make all your own bullets of any caliber. Because he has 140 guns and probably 60 or 70 different calibers. He had the bullets, the casings, the primers for all of them. So it was really cool to actually go in there. And that was our Friday night, man. Like, we didn't go down to Savannah. We didn't spend the money to go down to Savannah. We would go grab a 12-pack and we'd go down there and listen to music and just, reloading therapy, cranking rounds. And I was gonna buy a reloading setup, but I had plans to make a bench. And then I moved into this new house that I'm in, and I don't have the space in my garage, nor did I have the space in my trailer. So I'm actually gonna have to upgrade and probably get like a car hauler, like what Cody has.
Yeah.
He probably got rid of it,
Him
Or
and
is
Jess both have pickups.
didn't he?
So, which I can't keep up with the vehicles he has, man. They're always swapping out.
Yeah. He had the Subaru, and then I saw the tree crashed his new Ram, so he bought a new Ram like me. But I mean, I think I know I spent a little more on mine. And her truck's brand new too, so
Yeah,
I just feel bad because like brand new truck like that, and the tree falls, busts up the tailgate.
but sometimes an insurance check feels pretty good.
So, side story: 2 days before I left Fort Stewart to come to Fort Sill, I was actually going on post to do my final out with my battalion and officially, no matter what, wipe my hands clean of that unit and leave. And I'm about a quarter mile from the gate. I'm at a stop sign, and this dude, brand new 2020 1500 Chevy, rear ends me. I was like, "What the hell was that?" I look back and I flip a UE, go in this parking lot, and dude, this truck pulls in. The bumpers caved in, the grills caved in, the radiator's leaking. All I had on my truck, because I had my last truck, like my white one, I didn't have any crazy bumpers or anything. I had the hitch on for my trailer. That was it. I just had the hitch for my trailer. And dude comes up, he's like, "Hey, are you okay, man? Are you okay?" I was like, "I'm good, dude." I like looked at his truck. I was like, "Are you okay? And are you gonna be okay?" Because the only thing that happened to me is I had one small dent in my bumper. That was it. And he's like, "So it's funny you asked this because this is a loaner truck from the Chevy dealership. My car's in the shop."
Oh no.
Oh man.
And I was like, "Well, do you want to do an insurance claim, for that?" And he's like, "No, I think I'm just gonna tell him that someone hit me in the parking. I'm gonna tell him I got hit in the parking lot." He's like, "Do you want to do insurance?" And I looked at my bumper. I was like, "Dude, I leave in 2 days. I ain't waiting around for insurance to deal with this. So if you're good, I'm good. Here's my name." He's like, "Oh, here's my name. That's the great thing about the Army. Everybody has names on them." He's like, "All right, we know each other. I know where you work. You know where I work. If we want to settle this," and I went about my day. But ever since that day, I've had a hitch on my truck, whether I'm towing anything or not, because that hitch saved my truck.
I'm tempted to leave the ball on my expedition. So we haul our camper. It's like, I say it's 36 foot. I find Nicole's the one who knows the specs on the camper, and it turns
It's
out
not
that
36.
that she's just been telling people it's 36. It might be. I don't know.
What's the measurement? Like, is it to the tongue,
Dude,
or is it to the end of the camper?
I mean, to the tongue is only another like 4 feet, but
Because like my trailer is a 7 by mine's a 16-foot trailer, but I have the triangle front. They don't count that. They don't count that 2 feet. Plus another 2 feet in front of that is the tongue. So really, the full length is 4 4 20. But the sizes they go by is based on the box space.
so anyway, this thing, we're pulling it with an expedition, which is a half-ton rig, and there's some places where it gets a little sketchy, like that check engine light flashes a little bit going up a hill if you don't get a good running start at it. But I mean, we're not pulling it far. You know, I'm going back and I'm pulling it from Wilson, North Carolina to Petersburg, Virginia, like 2.5 hours. So it started in McDonough, Georgia. So I'm not too worried, but we do need to kind of upgrade at some point to pull that thing on a regular basis. I was looking at Rancher Supply, and Rancher Supply they've got some bigger pickups that, I don't know. I just feel like a cowboy rolling around in one of those. Like, I'd hang a pig and string off the headache rack for no reason.
Yeah.
Just like show up to work, like get out my OCPs, put my beret on, just like have a cowboy hat on the dash. But
oh man, you're gonna have to get rid of that beret here pretty soon.
What do you mean get rid of the beret?
After Triple C, if you don't go to an airborne unit.
So I don't run the beret for the last year.
Oh, really? Oh yeah, because of basic training.
Yeah, I've been I was a late before, but
then you found the light.
what is it they call you when I was a 5 jump chump.
Yeah.
I was a 5 jump chump, but now I'm gonna get to be actually airborne.
So that dude, my friend of mine, Bennett, when so he's out of Triple C from Ranger Battalion on TDY in return. So technically he's still owned by Ranger Regiment, but when you come to the schoolhouse, they make you wear the patch. He has to wear a PC. He fought for like 2 days to keep his tan beret.
Is he tabbed?
Oh yeah, he's tabbed and scrolled, man. He's everything.
But he was still fighting it?
Yeah, so there's actually 3 of them in his class that are from his battalion. So there's there's 4 field artillery lieutenant slots per each Ranger battalion, and 3 out of the 4 were like there, and they all fought it. And then some bigwig came down and was like, put the beret away, you're putting on a PC, you're wearing our patch. It was a pretty sad moment. Like, it was kind of like a funeral, man. Like, he like put it in a little box and put it away, and he's like, I worked so hard to wear this damn thing, I can't wear it out here.
I get it, but if you were with Ranger Regiment and you go to 4th ID next, you're not gonna wear a tan beret when you're in 4th ID.
No, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I think he's understood that his time is over, because they only get a year there, man. Like, if you're lucky, you get a year and a little over. If you're not lucky, it's like 8 months, and then there's really actually not a whole timeline to get into Ranger Regiment and be there. And most dudes, so we're talking about like basic training commands. It's like, you're not really surrounded by that great of people. 2 of our
That's not necessarily true. Well,
not necessarily.
What do you mean
true.
by surrounded by? You mean your peers? Like, if you're commanding basic training, the other guys who are also commanders aren't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So for the most part, they're not very high speed people, or like they have different motives, right? Like, they're not career, like they don't want to work up the racket within that branch. Like, they want to get their command out of the way to go do other stuff. So one of the things that I've learned recently, because we have 2 scrolled captains they're not basic training commanders, but they're trade-off, like the HHB. So when in my office, I work for the commandant, so I work for a 1-star general, but we're also part of HHB, like headquarters battery for the training brigade that does like Bullock and captain's career course. And that captain, he came from 2nd Ranger Battalion, where Cody's at, and then the other dude came from 3rd down at Fort Benning, and both of them are trying to go back to regiment. We're like, why would you do a command here? And they're like, because the command queue, the wait for taking command is less than 6 months. You go to Fort Carson, it's 24 to 36 months. So like, these dudes are, like, they get pulled out of regiment because they have to do command, they have to do certain stuff on the regular Army side to go back. So they're doing this to get this shit out of the way so that they can hop back over and go back to being with those guys over on that side of the Army. So that to me, like, I didn't know that until I started working this job. So you'll see that the high speed dudes do the low speed command jobs because it's a quick thing.
everyone's got their own idea about what is going to be best for your career, and a lot of it lines up. But here, what I think about it all is there's a lot of things out there everyone is going to tell you is important or crucial to your career success that turns out not to really mean anything on the back end. One of my buddies, this has been Canada. One thing he says, life only gets worse from wherever you're at. You're only going to have more responsibility. You're only going to have more regrets. Like, whatever you're doing, it only gets worse. And the reason he says that is basically the only logical conclusion from it is the best thing you can do is just to enjoy where you're at in the moment. So, like, as far as career planning goes, I kind of look at things. I can go try to get all the t-shirts and go from this airborne unit to this armored unit to this light unit to this aviation unit or whatever. Or you could, you try to get the best broadening assignments, but really if you're just trying to enjoy things the most that you can wherever you're at that time, that's probably the best route for you. If you're working your hardest and living life in a way that you're finding it enjoyable, that's all you can do. Know what I mean?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, define your requirements, right? What do you want out of your career?
What do you need to feel satisfied?
Yeah, what do you want out of your career? Do you want to be a full-time guy? Do you want to be a brigade commander? Do you want to be a general someday? Well, if that's what you want to do, you might want to listen to those people that are like, hey, go to this unit, go to that unit. Diversify your experience. Get as much exposure to different parts of the military as you can to make you a better rounded person. Or I just want to do my 20 and enjoy it and come out of it happy. If that's the case, then you go do that broadening assignment in Egypt for a year. Go do ROTC for 2 years because you want to teach people and you want to take a knee for a little while. Yeah, you may not ever be a commander past battalion, but you're freaking happy on the way out, and I think that's really important.
So with that, I got background. Uncle Matthew here, mechanical engineer, 1 semester away from having the degree and starting a career. What are you looking for?
I'm looking for a good paying job to put my wife through college. I'll be paying tuition here soon. I just want to be happy wherever I'm at. I want to feel like I'm actually doing something in the company. I want to feel like I can see some forward progress. I've got so many interests in so many different fields of studies where I don't really care where I end up as long as I feel like I'm a part of the team and feel like I'm really contributing.
Okay. So do you think, providing for Deborah as a wife, being a part of a team, that's a good start. That is, as far as your 25-meter target, your short-term goals, that's what anyone should hope for. I felt the same way. About to be a second lieutenant, I wanted to feel like I was doing something to help the organization. You feel like the whole thing's a lot bigger than you, which it is. And in a way, you kind of wonder if you can make a difference, and also you're hoping that you'll be impactful. I don't know. Is that kind of where you feel like you're at? You're hoping that whatever company you sign on with, or do you Do you have things lined up for when you get down to Texas?
Not yet. No, I need to look at some job opportunities, but right now Texas is pretty good for a mechanical engineer, especially near Dallas, big city, lots of opportunities. Yeah, just hoping to find something that I can really get behind, something I'm passionate about. But I mean, it's going to take some work experience to get where I really want to be. I want to be an engineering manager, so where I'm up in the higher ups and I'm directing my own team, kind of got my own thing going. But it's 10 years of experience, typical, usually 8 years minimum. So right now I'm just trying to find my niche and see what I really want to do.
So I've got a question. This is a question that I was given. I was asked this when I first got to my unit, and then I was asked the same question by the same guy 3.5 years later. How far ahead are you planning? And when I say that is like, where do you want to be? Where you want to be? How far ahead of that are you planning? Like, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? So, just to kind of help the question, my commander, really good, awesome dude, Dave Bracero, he asked me, what's your 5-year plan? Like, where do you want to be in 5 years? I said, well, in 5 years, my contract's up, like I want to be post battery command. He's like, all right, where do you want to be in 10 years? You need to start thinking 10 years ahead. You can't think 1 or 2 years ahead. You have to be thinking 10 years ahead, because at this point in your life, it's kind of like those infinite possibilities that spread out, and so it all starts here, and it's like within 10 years you have to make sure that what you're doing now, that in 10 years that's achievable. So I'm kind of curious, like, you want to be a project manager is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called. My brother's a project manager. He has a team. He's an engineer. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is.
Sounds right.
But
what kind of engineering did Kramer do?
So funny enough, Kramer got a sociology degree. The only reason he got a job with
Kramer is a party animal. Like
so-
he's like a Pike legend.
Yeah, so for those in the podcast, Kramer's my brother. To me, he's just some old schmuck. He's my brother. I didn't think he's a big deal. And then I go to college, and he's kind of like the godfather within the frat. I don't understand how. But everybody was like, yo, you're Kramer? Like, you're Kramer's real blood brother? Like, yeah, like, oh, dude. But yeah, so he actually did engineering with the Army, went to school for it, and then once he got done with that school as a National Guard, started applying, and he found a job with RK Mechanical. They did. They're doing the VA in Denver. They did the hotel, the Bowtie Hotel at Denver International Airport. So big company, and then he just like shot up. And within 4 or 5 years after college, he was making tons of. He was actually making more money than going to drill for the Guard. He was losing money, so that's part of the reason he got out. But anyways, like, I want to know, like, what do you like? Where in your career do you want to be in 5, 7, 10 years? What do you see? Because that's something that you, as like being 19 years old, that is something that you need to think about.
You was 23. I was joking.
23. Oh, yeah. I thought you were serious. Sorry, 23 years old. So yeah, like when you're our age at 27, 20 years old, and then up to 30, like, where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself, and how are you planning to get there?
So, a lot of my planning has been within the next three to 4 years, because that's Deborah's degree. She's going to be there for 4 years. Most of that's been, where do I want to go? What's the next step? What's the step after that? It gets a little bit more general after the 3 to 5 year range. And in 10 years, yeah, I want to be an engineering manager. I want to have my own team set up. And honestly, it's going to take a lot of exploring of companies to really know where I want to be. I want to stick with a company. I want to kind of grow with it and really contribute to the way that it's going. Have a lot more of a connection than most like millennials do. They typically jump jobs. I want to kind of stick with one and really make things happen there. 10 years time, that's really in the air, because
It's hard, right?
Oh yeah, because Deborah's going to have her own career. She's going to have things going on. I'm going to have my own things going on. Right now I'm considering Columbus, Ohio to work for Rogue. I don't know if you've heard of Rogue Fitness.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah, they do a lot of strongman implements.
And they use mechanical engineers over there.
Oh, they have to.
Yeah.
With the stuff they design.
To design all the different machines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Army contractors.
That's right up your alley
Really?
too.
Yeah, so the Army, a lot of our gym equipment is Rogue. I know that.
Yeah, all of our ACFT equipment's Rogue.
Yeah, so I know that Ranger Regiment, they have a special contract. I think it's with Rogue. All of their stuff is Rogue. I think, or another major brand like that. So it's really important for them.
Just never wear a Rogue T-shirt. Like,
Yeah, if you're in a gym paying $10 a month and you're wearing a Rogue T-shirt,
unless your name is Rich, what's the big CrossFit guy? Yeah, he's the guy that like wins the CrossFit games. Really cool dude though. But yeah, I see if I see somebody in a Rogue T-shirt, I judge them instantly.
oh yeah.
Like, not only do you go to the gym, but you want everybody around you to know you go to the gym.
So I kind of answered that question. It's kind of a loaded question because that was like what you just told me is what I told my commander a year ago. The crazy thing, and especially with the way that life comes up, especially with this year with COVID, is like, how can you plan 10 years ahead when any one of those years something can get thrown in and your course just goes. But I do think it is a good idea to have a general plan and what you want, a general goal, and then how you get there. Now, being in the same company, I think is awesome. So my brother's actually been jumping companies. So RK Mechanical had new leadership, and that's a big gorilla. RK Mechanical's huge, and he jumped off that ship and he went to a small company that's based out of Billings, Montana, and they have an office in Denver. It's like 7 dudes, and he actually took a pay cut, but he gets a higher position, and it gives you more experience. So I wouldn't take jumping companies out of your like list of things to do.
Oh no, that's kind of like an end goal. End goal, I want to end up someplace, but in the meantime, yeah, I'm totally.
Because when you're jumping different companies, you get to see like this company runs it this way, and this company they do things this way, and then like after 3 or 4 companies, like you actually get an idea of, and then when you get to the point where you're in charge of shit. Sorry, I'm probably not supposed to cuss on this. When you're in charge of stuff,
You won't be the first one.
all right, good. So when you're in charge of stuff, like you're gonna have that multi-domain like knowledge to where it's gonna make you a better leader in the end. So I think I think you got a good plan so far. Because even me, I'm planning up until my end of time in service, which is January of 2025, and that's gonna put me. Hopefully, if I'm lucky, that's gonna put me at Fort Carson, post command, maybe in ROTC, and then after that, I don't know. And I think in the next, as years go on, that 5-year kind of starts extending with you. And that's kind of like my whole thing is like a 3 to 5 year plan. And I think that's really safe and good planning. It's definitely a lot better than some people. Some people don't even plan like the next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, my planning is very like, it's kind of adventure based. Like right now, I know I want to live overseas for a stint of time, and I mean I want to go back. Like I want to try out for special operations again. And if the special operations thing goes well, then cool. We'll see where that takes me. If it doesn't, then I'll go about my career in logistics, and I may decide to stay active duty, or I may try to do the reserve thing, but do it overseas for a while, whether it be like Germany, Japan, Korea. Do that, and a lot of it so my family gets the experience of living in another country, another culture, and being away from the familiarity.
The comfort.
Yeah, just like the way that we live in the States, when you know you can go to a grocery store and that clerk speaks the same language as you, and you see all the same brands on the shelf as what you normally see, that like that's a comfort that I think we can all benefit from, like not having in our lives. When you can go somewhere where you don't speak that language and you don't necessarily know what's going on, I think you gain so much more. And it's really cool to go to another country and to feel the, like, how unfamiliar everything around you is, and to make your way about life anyway, and to still make your own decisions and feel that sense of freedom. I think it makes you more resilient, more capable human being. So I want my kids to experience that to some degree, so that way they'll grow up being more confident and more capable. But I don't know, for me, my goals are more, they're so experience based, because I know long-term goal, what I want is to end up right back here. You know, I've had the same picture in my head from the time I got married, and it's basically me on a front porch watching my grandkids or even my great grandkids out just playing, just enjoying themselves and chasing each other around in my front yard while I sit back and sip whiskey or whatever it is. Like, kind of like old Gus McCrae and Lonesome Dove. You know, for him, his dream is just to sit on the front porch and sip whiskey. I don't know if, yeah, Gus McCrae never had any kids that he knew of, but to me, just to know that, like, my bloodline lives on and that I have happy grandkids and great grandkids, that's everything. So I kind of know that it's going to end up back here in some form or fashion, like, you know, back in the agricultural world, and giving that experience to my descendants so that they can carry it on and become confident, resilient people who have values. And I don't know, I don't have a whole lot of a timeline, man. You know, what I've gathered is just some of the things that I cared about 5, 10, 15 years ago turned out to be pretty minuscule, and some of the things I didn't care about could have changed things, but I'm pretty happy with where I've ended up. And the best thing I can do is to make sure that I have a good time right now wherever I am, and to keep doing that every day. Like, thank God for what he's given me, you know, let him know my appreciation, and that, you know, it all belongs to him, and to never take any of it for granted. But there's plenty of things that I've, like, tried for and failed, and every failure has only been something that, you know, should make me more appreciative. At times it's made me bitter, but the hardships in life are supposed to make you better and not bitter. That's my soundbite. I went on for a little too long.
Yeah. So actually, I want to go back to.
I'm gonna go grab both of those cases of beer out of the fridge real quick. But you guys keep going.
You want to?
No, keep on going.
Okay, so to kind of go off of what he was saying about experiencing other cultures. Have you ever been in a different country?
Yeah, I've been to Mexico.
Mexico. Okay, so Mexico's kind of what part of Mexico?
Touristy area.
Touristy area.
Nothing too,
Okay,
like,
so
authentic.
Going back to the whole, you know, going to a different country, experiencing a different culture. Like in Korea, like when I got there, I made it my goal to avoid the touristy areas. And so what he was saying is like experiencing a different culture to the point where you're, you know, like going to a grocery store and someone speaks a different language, and that kind of resonated with me because when I was in Korea, you know, Korea is kind of self-sufficient in a way. Like they import stuff, but it's really not a lot. And like certain times a year, you can't get strawberries. Where in America, you can get strawberries any time of the year. Thanks to, you know, the semi not so great state of California, you can get produce pretty much any time of year. And then also with our, you know, relationships with South America. But when I was in Korea, there's a lot of things that I noticed, and I always take this back, is some of the things that you take for granted in America, and I've got a small list of items, and they may sound insignificant, but they kind of stack up. So in Korea, walk around the streets, right outside of every army camp in Korea, they call it the Ville. And the Ville is the area where the bars are at, where the food's at, real close to base, and you get yourself different cultures. So in the Camp Humphreysville, we had an Irish pub that was owned by an Irishman who moved from Ireland. So like, honestly, I really didn't like the food that much, and that's probably how authentic it was. And of course, he had Jameson bottles lined up everywhere. We had a South African place that served lamb and prawn, and that was pretty much it. And you were guaranteed to spend $50 every time you went there, but it was authentic. We had a Brazilian steakhouse. Then we had a Thai place that was owned by Thai people. So what I didn't realize about Korea is like Seoul and all the major cities around there, that's kind of like, Seoul is like the New York City of that part of the world. So all the food you have is authentic. So one, that's probably why I gained 20 pounds while I was there, because I was eating authentic food and I couldn't get enough of it. I was always trying to try more. One of the things I learned is there's no public trash cans. So you go around America, any outdoor mall, anywhere you go, there's trash cans everywhere, right? You throw your trash away. Korea doesn't do that. They do trash by the pound to go to their like very limited landfills. So you'll see a lot of trash laying out in buckets or on drying racks. They'll actually dry their trash out to lighten the weight so it doesn't cost them as much. And also, the only place to throw trash away is in restaurants, and that's if they let you. Another thing that I noticed was public bathrooms. There's almost no public bathrooms anywhere. So if you gotta go to the bathroom, you gotta go to the restaurant, and if you wanna go to the bathroom in there, you gotta buy stuff. On top of that, napkins. And this is a weird one. Napkins. Napkins in Korea are the size of this coaster. So when you get yourself a big hearty meal full of like sauce and everything, like this is all you got to wipe your hands off. And good luck getting more because it's really limited. So there's a lot of those American creature comforts that you didn't get there. And it was kind of a cool experience to go in there and not have that stuff and kind of learn how they do it. On top of that, the people alone. I always told my soldiers, I was like, Koreans have a hive mind when it comes to driving because nobody follows the speed limits. Everyone's speeding. Everyone's got somewhere to be. But I've never seen an accident. Not once in Korea. The only accidents I ever saw were American convoys, like American military personnel getting in accidents. Never saw a Korean accident ever. I've seen close calls left and right, but I never saw an accident. So I'm convinced that it's a hive mind. But in general, the people were just, it really opened my eyes to how they raise their children. So they respect their elders, no matter where they come from, what the guy went through. Like if there's, like even in the trains, there was a bunch of soldiers that you can buy standing tickets for $4. $4 gets you from Pyeongtaek to Seoul, which is about an hour train ride, and that's if you stand. You spend $10 and you can sit down. Well, a bunch of soldiers sat down, and an elderly woman, she ended up standing, and this young, probably 17, 18-year-old Korean kid, he got up and gave her her seat. And the American kids, they saw it, they were watching it happen, and they didn't do anything about it. So like they raised their kids with values, and as a culture in general. And most of them know English too. The younger ones do. The old ones don't. The old ones don't really care about English. The cool thing about us being there is 3rd Infantry Division, our 2018 rotation was the first time back to the peninsula since the war. So the younger kids didn't really know, like when we were driving around, because we drove tanks everywhere, like the Bradleys, the actual like main battle tanks they got trucked everywhere, but our Bradleys, our smaller track vehicles, we drove like, and I definitely drove into towns I wasn't supposed to go into. But they saw our patch and the older people. So like pretty much if you go into Korea and there's somebody who is the 50s, so let's say 35, 75 to 80-year-old men, if you see them, they were in the war. They know this patch. So those older gentlemen would come up to us and shake our hand and thank us because, you know, we were such a big deal there, I guess.
It's crazy, man. Like, you know, now everybody who's in the service is talking about how these new privates weren't even born when 9/11 happened. But how far back does that go? Like, my grandpa who has passed away and, you know, is no longer living life on this earth, fought in Korea. And the guys who fought alongside him see the patch on kids who know nothing about the conflict in Korea, but still, you know, have that respect and are thankful for their presence. that says something. Like when your unit has that historic legacy, you know, we're notorious in the military for trashing the units that we're in, but you know, when you trash your unit, you're trashing something that is so much bigger than yourself and so much bigger than the people around you. You know, I've been a part of 2 different units that both were decisive in World War II, that fought in Bastogne and Ardennes and Market Garden and Battle of the Bulge and all those huge conflicts. But you know, one thing that I think we failed at is we don't understand the significance of the history. Mm-hmm. You know, in the Marine Corps, they drive that home. They drive it into your mind that you have 7 belt loops because of the 7 C's. And what Marines were at the Battle of Iwo Jima? All of them. Every Marine was at Iwo Jima. You know, that's something I think they beat us at, is they appreciate their history and where they come from. And I think that's why, like, to me, that's why it's important that my kids know where their family came from. Like, that's why my sons are named after their ancestors, so that way they know who brought them into America and you know what their history is. But I think that's cool, man. Like, I had no idea that those old Korean men were like shaking hands with these 18-year-old privates.
Yeah, and it was really a surreal experience. Like, so when we went to the Korean War Museum, and we talked about it a little bit when we were drinking whiskey, but the Korean War Museum, we went there at 7 in the morning when it opened, and it closed at 4 p.m. And we weren't even all the way through this place. It's massive, and they have, I mean, funny enough, they have an exhibit dedicated to the 1911. This double the size of your basement, just 1911s everywhere, right? And like the gun that won the war, right? But the cool thing is they had a motor pool outside, and the motor pool had every major vehicle from the north and from the south and from Americans all there on display. And like they did a bunch of tours, and there were Korean vets there. Like there were Koreans who were taking their grandkids, and dude, I teared up when I saw this old hobbly Korean dude and his little, probably his great grandson.
We're at 57 minutes, and I can only do hour-long recordings at a time. We're gonna have to take a brief. It won't be an intermission for us. It'll be an intermission for the listener. What song? What's a good song to use for intermission music? Dude, I'm kind of tempted to use Private Malone.
Yeah, Private Malone's a good one. Yeah,
Okay.
Private Malone.
We'll use that one. So enjoy listening to Private Malone for a real quick second, and come back and join us for the rest of the podcast. All right. Gotta save that one.
Video still going?
It is still going. So if you're on YouTube, then you're still with us while I try to name this segment and add the recording. I think my thumb is too cold to
register on the touchscreen?
Yeah.
I've had that happen the last few days.
I just added a blank recording to, okay, that'll work. So yeah, if you're watching on the YouTube version, we are currently conducting the intermission. Feel free to take a bathroom break, grab a drink. I'm trying to, here we go. We're about ready to start recording again. And 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're at the Korean War Museum, and hobbly old Korean man with his grandson.
Yeah. So the Korean War Museum, when you show up, the main entrance, they actually have a dedication to every American soldier from every state that died in the Korean War. It's really cool. And the old Korean dude, I don't remember the state. I want to say it was alphabetical. I want to say it was Mississippi, but he was sitting there with his, obviously his kids who are adults and his grandkids, and he was sitting there pointing at a name, and talking about it. And obviously, I was just a bystander watching it, but to me, like, he's teaching his kids and his grandkids about somebody important to him, an American that was important to him probably during the war. So that was really cool. Extremely cool experience to see that history. And that's what I love about the Korean culture is, like, one thing that a lot of people don't know about Korea is that war did not leave the country. Like, Seoul is a first world country. I mean, they produce Samsung, Kia, Hyundai. I mean, they're a powerhouse in the Western world. And one thing is, like, when you go around Korea, every tunnel has pillboxes on all sides. It's militarized. There's helicopters and jets flying over all the time. And one of the things that it took me a while to figure out what it was, but key bridges, and I found out they were key, like, bridges that they have these big concrete pillars, right? And they're probably, man, if I had to bet, they were like 3.5 to 4 feet in every direction, right? And they're huge, massive pillars. They're probably about 8 feet tall, and they got these really small bases and PVC pipes with wires sticking out of them. And I was like, what the heck are these things? And I ended up talking to one of the senior Katusas, and he's like, oh, those are defense bridges. And so in the event of another invasion, the Korean EOD would come up and they would blow those concrete blocks and it would block the bridge. And they were everywhere. So this country, even though it's been 60, 70 years in armistice, they're prepared to get invaded again.
Well, that is recent, like, that's recent memory. You know, in the United States, we had 9/11, but the last time we were invaded was Pancho Villa, when he crossed from Columbus into Columbus. And that only affected, like, a portion of New Mexico. People didn't think much of that. So as a country, we don't really have in our recent memory to know what warfare was like on our own continent.
Or to fear an invasion either.
Yeah. That's, none of us think of invasion as a realistic occurrence. That's why movies like Red Dawn sell, because we don't really think about that. Yeah, we don't. Yep, exactly, man. It's a novelty. In South Korea, you couldn't sell a movie like Red Dawn. That's like,
no,
everybody's thinking about that.
So funny enough, Korean film is known for zombie movies. So there's 2 movies.
The Korean zombie, the MMA fighter. It makes sense now.
Yeah. So the first one's called Train to Busan, and I was reluctant to watch it because it came out right after I got back from Korea, and all of Korea was so fresh in my mind. I was like, I don't want to watch it because the first scene was what we call a bongo truck, and there's these little van dually vans, and these things are probably the size of your pool table, but they put about as much weight as a Dodge Ram 3500 does, like. And these dudes, they have any variant you want, right? These things are super cool and various in all the different kinds of trucks that they are. But it was a bongo truck showing up to a tollway, because there's tollways everywhere, which we never paid because we're the American government. We're here to help. So we never paid the tolls.
We also built the road in the first place. But yeah, this bongo truck shows up to a tollway. So when I got back from Korea, I watched it. I was like, oh, I'm not watching this. I got flashbacks. But a couple months later, I watched it, and dude, it was really good. It was a really, really good movie. And now they have a sequel called Peninsula. Unfortunately, it's all in Korean, so you gotta read subtitles. But dude, they're really good movies. So they're actually really known for those movies. Another fun fact: the Samsung factory is actually on the border, and it has workers from North Korea and South Korea. So North Koreans and South Koreans work together building Samsung TVs and phones.
That's crazy.
Pretty insane.
What was the name of that first zombie movie?
Train to Busan.
Train to Busan.
So yeah, so Busan's the big. So the whole premise of the movie is like they're I don't remember what Patient Zero. It's probably like a lab experience gone wrong, right? But it's basically the zombie apocalypse hits and hits a train station in northern part of South Korea. It's a train station, and all these people are on a train going south. Like, hey, we're going to Busan because Busan people are going to get on ships. They're going to get off the peninsula, That's their plan, and a majority of the movie is them going from train station to train station, finding out what's safe and what's not. And the story actually covers multiple people, and there's background to it. And the end of the movie is them actually getting to a safe zone where they're away from it. But Peninsula, it's kind of like 28 weeks later, 20 days later, 20 weeks later, those zombie movies. And that's kind of the sequels are. So the Peninsula is actually a couple months after, where like now you have factions of like warlords who have thrived and survived in the zombie environment in Korea,
Like
and these people are, and I'm sure they're trying to get somewhere. That's usually like the plot. So they're trying to get somewhere. But it actually looks really good. I haven't watched Peninsula yet. It keeps popping up. I'm waiting for it to get off of renting for money and getting on Netflix for free. So I'm gonna try to watch. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to go to Korea, man, there's the cool thing is if you're big into war history, that whole peninsula, except for Busan and Busan. So Busan is an area, Busan's a town. So Busan is the town, and the surrounding area is called Busan. That whole place is just a treasure trove of battlefields. So I don't know if you've ever heard of like a battlefield excavation. So guys go out to like the Eastern Front or main battlefields from World War II and go out there with metal detectors and like pick up guns and helmets and stuff.
Yeah.
Korea is a treasure trove for that stuff. And I know in Europe it's huge. Like I know that Russia has like an actual market of excavation where there's stores that sell everything that you could need. They sell battle maps, they sell metal detectors, shovels, and everything you need to excavate a battlefield and find some, treasures from World War II. I don't think it's in Korea yet. And me and the guys were like really getting into that. Like, maybe we could do that when we're here. Because when my unit was in Germany, one of our commanders got into battlefield excavation, and we went to Germany 3 different times in a year and a half. And over the course of those 3 rotations, he found a Luger, one. And not only did he find a Luger, but he actually he bought all the supplies to restore it and get all the rust and break everything up, and it shoots now. So he's got a legit German Luger that the last person to have it was a dead German, and he's the owner of it now. So pretty cool stuff.
That's crazy.
Man. And that's less than 100 years ago. Some of the history that we have out here dates further back.
Yeah.
Like
Frontier
the
days. Cowboys and
arrowheads.
Indian days.
Yeah, man, the arrowheads that we found. Who knows how far back those go? It's
What's crazy is to know that, like, even from thousands of years ago, there's guys that are finding Viking swords up in Norway, in the fjords, like the little finger waterways all in Norway. They're finding these swords and helmets. So actually, one of the misconceptions of the Vikings is that they wore helmets. There's only been like a handful of actually like confirmed Viking helmets. But I mean, I've been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, so like history, like I've been getting into the Viking history because I played that game. But it's crazy that these dudes are from, in between the British Empire and the Roman Empire, between those 2 time periods, that stuff from these time periods so you found. Like,
it was crazy. I saw an article the other day that was talking about a body that was reported in some park in England. They found a dead body, and whenever people went to go investigate it, it was the body of someone who was murdered 300 to 500 years ago. And it was just perfectly preserved for some reason, like propped up against a tree.
not
Really?
even like freezing conditions or
No, just there.
how does that happen? On those tiny little British Isles, like I don't know, man. There's a lot of places you could hide a body out here, but I don't know, there ain't a lot of country out here that somebody isn't familiar with. Now, it is feasible to cross some country that not a lot of other white men have been over, but England,
Yeah, you'd think
how does that happen?
it would have been all over the place.
and he was exposed to the air because air is what destroys. Like even when they open,
Yeah.
you know, when they open sarcophagus is that how you say it with mummies? Sarcophagi, yeah. when they open those, like as soon as you open it, there's a limited amount of time before that body starts decomposing because the air will get to it, and that's why like on the Eastern Front, especially in the parts of Russia that there's a lot of swamplands. That's where the best finds are, is because when they get into that mud actually preserves. They actually found a T-34 Russian tank completely submerged in a mud pit. It actually got into a bog and submerged. Crew got out and they left the tank. Well, these dudes found it like 7 years later. It took them like 4 days to pull it out of the tractor, but it was so well preserved that the paint and the writing, the tankers wrote on it with paint, and that paint was still there. You know, that long after they were pulling rounds out, and the tank rounds, I mean, besides being covered in mud, they were still functional. Like they would still shoot. They looked it up. Like they would still shoot. So it's crazy to see how like depending on where something falls, it can, like if it's in mud, it's gonna get preserved. And it's it's crazy to see that every week people are pulling up new things. There's always stuff to find, especially in the whole World War.
Yeah.
Dude, there's a German U-boat off the coast of North Carolina a little ways.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. Pretty cool history to that one. There were a few survivors that, our military went back and picked up as enemy prisoners of war, but yeah, you can still dive off the coast of North Carolina and see a German U-boat.
So the U-boats, that's the whole reason the intercoastal waterway got built. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
So
I thought that was naturally occurring.
the Army Corps of Engineers still maintain it to this day. So the intercoastal waterway is a man-made, basically a canal that's about, it varies, right, depending on beaches and stuff, but basically it's a couple miles inland, maybe a mile, probably a mile to 2 miles inland.
Depending on where you are.
Depending on where you are, but it goes, I forget where it starts.
There's always a barrier island that separates you from it.
I don't know where it starts north, but it's almost up to New York. It's up there. It's
far
like,
north is.
It's like 1,200 miles long, and it goes all the way down to Miami. And so the Army Corps of Engineers built it so that trade ships could go up and down the coast without the threat of U-boats sinking them. And so what they would do is, based on intelligence and radar and sonar, they would go down the waterway, and then when they knew it was safe, they'd hop into the Atlantic and start heading over to Britain to resupply the war effort. And so, like the last 3 Christmases at Stewart, I've gone down to Fort Lauderdale, and every single time we do the damn tour, and they talk about it. And the Army Corps of Engineers still maintains that whole waterway. So whenever like something starts caving in, the Army Engineers come over and fix it. So a pretty cool piece of history that not a lot of people know about.
So like every time we've gone to the beach on the East Coast, we've crossed the intercoastal waterway
To get to the actual beach.
And nowadays, that's why you go over drawbridges, because like sailboats go through there. And if their mast is higher than the drawbridge is, they've got to lift up in order to let somebody through.
And they'll do it every half hour on the hour, and it's in sequence. So what's cool is if you're in a sailboat, you don't have to sit and wait a half hour every time. It'll actually, if you sail a certain speed, you'll go, and if you got it right, you'll hit every drawbridge, and it's just a smooth sailing for as long as you want to go.
Yeah.
But being a driver, it's a pain in the ass, because you look at the time, and you're like, oh, and then there's traffic, and then bam, drawbridge is up. So you've got like 15 minutes, you just gotta sit there and wait, and the traffic starts stacking up.
Man, what a life though that is. It's gotta be like
Just to sail.
Yeah, just sailing.
Go. So the waterway tour that we do in Fort Lauderdale, it actually goes from Boca Raton, which is a really ritzy part of that part of Florida. So Fort Lauderdale is right above Miami, and Boca's right above that. And we did that tour, and of course the dude, the captain, tells us all the stories, because there's houses, like $1 million houses all along, and then they have this one place called the Sanctuary, and the Sanctuary is actually, and we saw them, it's a private waterway that peels off the intercoastal and goes in, and it's owned by probably some of the most famous people in that part of Florida, and they have armed guards, and by law they are legally allowed to shoot trespassers after one warning. So like, let's say you're driving your jet ski on the intercoastal like rental jet ski, and you're like, let's go down this like, because it doesn't look like a housing development. It just looks like a bunch of trees, like kind of like a nature area. But I mean, if you really look, like you see big old mansions back there, and they actually did have a guy, a drunk dude on a jet ski, go down there and was ignoring the warnings from the security guards on the boats, and they shot it. They didn't shoot him, but they shot his jet ski, got him to stop. But they were saying there's like politicians and big sports people and like celebrities that have houses back there. But dude, the amount of money, and it's a 6-mile trip down and back, 12 miles total, and that 6-mile trip, it's like over $2 billion worth of houses, just the properties that are facing the water, not the ones that go down the canals. So the amount of money down there in Florida is ridiculous.
It's nuts.
Absolutely insane.
And all on the coast. Like,
Anything on the coast, but you go 4 miles inland, those prices are about as cheap as you're gonna get in Florida. Like, it's really not unaffordable. But if you want to be close to the ocean, super expensive.
It's where Florida man lives. He's 4 miles inland.
Dude, I've done that Florida man search. That stuff gets me going. Florida man and your birth month. Or your birthday. I tell you, man, being on the east, being stationed on the East Coast is an awesome experience. I'm really glad that I got to go out there to experience the South, learn how to cook low country boil, and enjoy that Southern comfort. Being so close to so many different things, like 3 hours from Atlanta, 3 hours from Charleston, 5 hours from Bragg, 6 hours to Miami. I mean, I drove 6 hours, 45 minutes to come up here. Shoot, to go to Miami, pretty easy.
dude, yeah, we went to, what is it, I can't think of where we were. We went to the Gulf side of Florida. You know, it was like halfway down.
Up by the Panhandle or kind of down on the peninsula?
Down the peninsula.
Clearwater?
Further south, I think.
Okay. I
I
like the
can't
Gulf
remember what
side
it was.
better, though, personally.
We went to
The
Pink,
water's warm.
Pink Shell Resort is what it was. But yeah, we stayed out there with Nicole's aunt and uncle, and my mother-in-law came down too. But that was fun, man. We were like, you know, me and Nicole's uncle and her cousin. We were out paddleboarding, and this dolphin is like swimming underneath our paddleboards, and he's got a fish in his mouth, and he just like let go of this fish, let it float to the surface, come back up for it, and just totally like chill dolphin who's rolling with us as we're paddleboarding.
And just that experience coming from Colorado, like one of the most landlocked states
yeah.
in the world.
Oh yeah.
or
You
in the
appreciate
country.
it so
And
much
then like you
more.
go to the beach and like that's what I loved about being at Stewart is like, man, an hour away and I've got an awesome beach that has no open container law, so I can grab my beer, go
Yep.
from the beach, go in and get a slice of pizza. Like it was the coolest experience. And you know, when I was seeing that occupational therapist I was talking about, shoot, for like 4 days straight, we went to the beach every single day. We set up an easy up tent, grabbed a cooler full of beers, and we just sit there the whole
Dude,
day enjoying the weather.
I camped with an ocean view. Like 2 weeks
One
ago.
of those drive-on beaches.
Well, not quite, because you know the old Expedition's not a 4-wheel drive vehicle.
Yeah, but you could if
we were in a mega campsite, so yeah, you could like if you had a golf cart, you could just drive out. We rode bikes on the beach.
So they let you camp out there though and like have a
Yeah.
fire and stuff.
Like I saw dolphins out the window from my bedroom one day.
That's cool.
It's so cool.
And that same camper, man, I could pull it right to Colorado and I could set it up at the KOA in Lamar and have a horse boarding right there. You know, and that's what we would have done. If I'd have gone to Qatar, Nicole would have pulled that thing over to KOA in Lamar and, you know, probably would have been a farmer while I was over, you know, being a detachment commander. But
So
that's the cool thing about the camper life.
yeah. So one of the things I was thinking about, and actually I hate doing road trips by myself, just because I end up talking to myself too much. But one of the things I was kind of like thinking about was being at Sill, and like my job is kind of monotonous, right? Like it's literally the same thing every single day, and it's been that way for the last 8 months. I'm kind of like man, like kind of think to myself, like, did I waste my youth by joining the Army?
No.
And then,
I'm cutting you off. All right, I'll roll.
Say your piece, man. Say your
Yeah,
piece.
man. The concept of youth is, and maybe when I get to be elderly, I'll think otherwise. So what do I really know? But the whole idea of your youth, that's just, it's nothing. Like, you know, when I got married at 21, I wondered if I missed out on my youth because I didn't have my wild and woolly days or whatever. But, you know, what did I really miss out on? Making dumb decisions and like being stupid reckless. I still got my fair share of dumb decisions. Everybody's gonna feel like they had their fair share of dumb decisions. And I don't know, man. I really don't think that like the whole idea of youth is anything. I was talking to one of my buddies he's now an E7. He's a sergeant first class. Where he's at in his career, he is one of one. There's one position for a Army JTAC in special operations, and he is that guy. And I was talking to him, like, this guy was my next door neighbor at Bragg. Loved having him as a neighbor. He'd call me up on a Friday, be like, hey, you guys want to grill and drink some wine together? And that's what we'd do. Friday evening, our kids would play together. You know, I'd grill in my backyard while he was grilling in his backyard, and we'd get into some wine, and the girls would talk, and me and him would talk and listen to music together, and our families just meshed with each other, and we were living like in an adjoining unit, so it worked really well. But I was telling him, I was like, you know, I want to learn how to play hockey. I want to fight bulls, and I think there was one other thing, and I was like, man, I don't know. I kind of feel like I ought to just outgrow that. I'm a married man, and I need to just get on with my life. And he's like, no. He's like, dude, you have dreams. Don't ever give up on dreaming. And it was kind of cool to think about that. But I think that's what we think about as our youth. Like for Rick Lefevre, you know, being a saddle bronc rider, you know, that was his dream. And in reality, that wasn't a dream. That's what he was. Like, he was a saddle bronc rider. During that time, he was getting on saddle broncs. Whether or not he covered, he was doing it. It's what he wanted to do, so he did it. And I think that's what we think of as youth. It's the time when we're doing the things we want to do and not just being controlled by what we need to do or what is the most responsible thing to do. That's my rabbit hole. I'm not sure how I got into it.
So I agree with you, and that was like, so my initial thought, and that's kind of a thought that kind of comes up and down, especially when you get into, you know, I went from training nonstop to where I was sick of going to the field, sick of deploying, sick of going to training, and then I get to this office job that I've been waiting for so long, and I thought to myself, like, man, like, how did I join the Army? Like, would I be married now? Would I be happier if I was in the civilian world and then married? And then I started thinking about it.
Are those your dreams? Being married?
So yeah, my end goal, my end dream is to be married and have a family. And so we're gonna kind of go on a couple of rabbit holes. I'll make them quick, but
No, I mean, we got all the time in the world.
Yeah, we got all the time
I
in the
have
world.
no, like...
I got nothing to do tomorrow, man. I just gotta be home tomorrow. That's it.
And my two older kids will wake up and they'll go straight to grandma's room.
Bug her at 5 a.m.
Yeah. But my internal clock's gonna wake me up early anyway, and I don't care.
So, like, maybe lose my train of thought for a second.
Family and kids, you were one.
Yeah, so when I got in, like, when I was in RTC, I was like, I don't want anybody getting away. Like, the Army has been my dream. To be a soldier has been my dream ever since I was a little kid. And I was like, I'm not going to let any person get in the way of that. And then I do the Army for 4 years. You know, I go to Oklahoma, first time ever being away from home for an extended period of time, like farther than being able to drive. And then I go to Georgia, never been to the South, never been to the East Coast for more than just like a week trip, right? And then next thing you know, I found myself in the deserts of California, the most liberal state in this great United States, raging war for 30 days. And then I find myself in Korea and back to Georgia, back to California. Like, I've traveled the world. I've traveled more in 4 years than most people have done in their life. And not only that, but like the people I've met along the way, the relationships I've gathered, the Air Force JTACs that we had. Like, I went from 1 week I was doing call for fires at the range with my soldiers doing my job. The next week I was qualifying as a tank commander. I'm not an armor officer, but here I am in Korea shooting an Abrams tank, doing the job that originally I wanted to do all along, living the dream. And then the week after that, I'm talking to some major flying an A-10 at 1,200 feet, giving me the hang loose sign as he goes in, about to drop some bombs that I just told him to drop. Like, 3 weeks after that, I'm at the sniper range shooting 50 caliber sniper rifles with the snipers. Like, I have done so much stuff that I never thought I would do. And that's kind of on my way up here. I was like, you know what? I didn't waste my youth. I actually, I did more with my early 20s than most people do when they graduate college. Yeah, so like maybe if I, graduated college into RTC, maybe I'd found a girl and I might be happy. I might be working an office job, but at the same time, I've stopped assuming that I need someone with me right now to be happy, because like I've actually been pretty freaking happy doing what I'm doing. And then over the course of the 4 years, I have realized that my priorities have changed, and if I find the right person and that's what makes me happy, then I will leave the Army and I will go find something else, because shit changes. And priorities change. And to me, like, dude, I'm happy. I'm thankful. And not only am I thankful for all the things that I've done, but like being able to go back to Fort Sill and these dudes that I haven't seen in 4 years, that I spent all my years in college with, and I'm hanging out with them every Friday, watching Mark possibly die paragliding off of a mountain. Like, even coming up here, like I just off a whim, after watching my, Google tell me where I was going to go home, being able to come down here and see you guys, and one, I'm thankful for you letting me stay here, but two, like,
I'm glad you thought of us and dropping in, man.
Yeah, like, and the awesome thing is I felt so alone leaving Colorado. I was like, man, ain't nobody going to Fort Stewart. Nobody that I know is going to Fort Stewart. And then here I am, littered throughout the country at all Army bases around the country. I got a friend everywhere. I got friends literally everywhere, and I know that all these guys will take me and let me sleep on the
National Guard guys too, man.
Yeah.
Like, when I was driving from North Carolina back to Colorado, my goal was, get to St. Louis and stay with my buddy Neil, who's National Guard. Like, it is pretty cool. You feel like you got somebody no matter where you go. And yeah, when I was a state officer for FFA, I feel like no matter where I was in Colorado, if I had a flat tire, I had somebody who could come help me out, who would be there. And now it's kind of more of a national thing.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I know somebody in almost every state.
Yeah, man, it's surreal to see, like, when they always say like the Army's a small world, it makes the world smaller than the state that we live in. Like, yeah, it's insane, and I love it. I'm so thankful for it, and that's why I love this career. Like, I was always worried about doing the Army, like doing 20 years and doing like the traditional. Like, I'm like, man, I don't know if I can do 20 years of this, but like, I've had ups and downs, man. Like, my first year and a half at Fort Stewart, I loved it. I was all about it. I loved my commander. I loved my command team. And then this new commander came in, and I hated my life for like a good year, which is the reason I went to Fort Sill, to get away from this guy. And now looking back, having that good experience and that horrible experience, I learned from both of them, and I'm actually happy to have had it. To
Yeah.
had it rough, to had it to where I was walking on eggshells around this one colonel, to understand. I know what a good leader looks like and what a bad leader looks like, and you always learn, and I don't plan on stopping. People always ask me, "You gonna be 20 years?" Like, I don't know if I'm gonna do 20, but I ain't gonna stop, and I ain't gonna stop until something big happens. So, like I'm super glad with the decisions I made, and I don't really regret making the decisions I made.
That's a
Yeah.
good thing. I mean, it's always a grass is greener on the other side kind of thing, right?
I'm a huge proponent of that. It's true. It's absolutely true. The grass is always greener on the other side.
Oh yeah, here I am. I'm getting married at 23 here in 2 weeks, and I'm thinking like, man, if I wasn't getting married, would I be in Korea? Would I be exploring the world and doing all this crazy stuff, shooting 50 cows and Abrams tanks? But you just got to be happy with where you're at. Know that you made the decisions that you did for a reason, and really just go with them.
Yeah. I mean, it's huge. And one thing is, so when I was in Nebraska for Thanksgiving, and like my dad's family's huge. They're all over Nebraska and Kansas. I really don't know them. There's so many of them. I don't really know all of them. But we had a kid there, and I don't know why, man. But he was just like, I thought about joining the Army, and I don't know why. Like, I hate that conversation because it's the stigma that us soldiers, we look down at people who don't join. Like, I actually envy people. Some people that don't join, it's like, you're really smart. You're wasted talent in the Army. Like, you're gonna go do something in a company, right? You're gonna get in a whole team of engineers, and like, you're gonna make something and make a company better. Like, that's valuable.
And at the same time, you also meet people with master's degrees who came into the Army as specialists and just decided to take that route. Like,
So, when my brother graduated engineer Bullock in 2013, on my flight back home, I was at the USO, and there was a guy, old dude, specialist. And I was like, "What's your Army license?" He's like, "Oh, I'm a tanker." I was like, "How old are you?" He's like, "Whatever. I think whatever the enlistment level is, 35." He's like, "I've got a doctorate." I was like, "You're a doctor?" He's like, "Yes." I was like, "And you're National Guard?" He's like, "No, I'm active duty." I was like, "Why?" He goes, man, I got tired of all the hard stuff about being a doctor and like learning to be a doctor." He's like, "I've also got a calling, and that's what I want to do." He's like, "I'm gonna do my 4 years. I'm gonna give back to this great country that gave me this degree and this title, and then I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna do doctor stuff." So like I said, like going back to that, I really hate the stigma that we look down at people who don't join the military. Like, it's literally not for everybody. It's 1%. 1% of the country is part of the military, and like, I don't look down at you for not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I went to Sean Abrams' tank doesn't make me any better of a person than you. And I'm a big proponent of not looking down at people based on experience.
Yeah.
Because like, dude, as a mechanical engineer, you're designing stuff that I could only dream of even thinking about. I don't have ideas like that. I couldn't design a screwdriver if nobody ever designed it. Like,
this stuff they're working with, man, it's like right over my head. I can't like just stop and try to like put the stuff they're doing into words.
yeah, like, so the engineers that make the turrets for the tanks and the Bradleys, so it's called, oh man, what's it called? So basically, the turrets that we have, they can spin indefinitely. Everything inside the turret's powered, right? Like the optics and everything, it's all tied to stuff outside the tank. But you can spin that turret around and around and around and around and around, and nothing's ever going to happen. And it blew my mind. I was like, how is it that there's no cables getting twisted up every time that turret turns? And they're like, oh, so like, you ever been in bumper cars where they have like the big sticks and like the things that hit the wall and spark that provide power when you drive around? He's like, it's basically the same technology. I was like, yeah, nope, I would never have thought of that. Ever. So I mean, I absolutely envy that you're doing the mechanical engineering. Cause that's a hard thing to do, man. You gotta be smart. You gotta be a smart cookie. You're smarter than your brother. I'm telling you that right now.
No, we had that figured out very early on. When he wanted to start reading at like 4 years old and pulled it off with no classroom education, yeah, we knew that he was a little bit ahead. There was something that set him out from everyone else.
So where are you wanting to stay in Colorado? Where do you?
I'll be down in Texas actually.
So yeah, so that's what you're talking about. So Texas, and then you said you wanted to go to
Well, Columbus, Ohio
Columbus.
is a maybe. I mean, if I can do that, maybe. But
so mechanical. Sorry, I'm kind of like jumping around. Mechanical engineering. I know that's a blanket field.
oh,
Is there like a specific type of mechanical engineering that you want to go into?
right now, robotics. Robotics really has my interest. Those are the classes that I really enjoy the most, and I'd really like to get into the software development, the programming aspects of controlling what exactly they're doing in robotics.
So is there like a certain like field within robotics that you want to work into, like car manufacturing or like robotics involving like amputees and prosthetics? Like what kind of robotics do you want to do?
Basically, replacing humans in the workplace. I know it sounds really horrible, but like in
Making
really
companies more efficient.
Yeah, sure. Optimization. I'd really like to make robots that fulfill the tasks of humans, especially in dangerous environments like oil field, have it automated to where you can get a machine going.
Kyle, you're right there.
Dude,
Powering down.
yeah, I'm hitting that wall. Oh, it's 2 a.m. Yeah, it's like 4 a.m. for me. I still haven't fully adjusted to mountain time. But you guys are still like,
Good.
Does the show go on without you?
I don't know, does
Oh, we can wrap up.
it could? Yeah, well, oh yeah, we're almost at like an hour and 40 minutes. Man, I feel like we still only discussed like a fraction of what we could have discussed.
Yep.
But
A fraction of what we have discussed.
yeah, we kind of just like touched base on things. Anyway, we could, hey, the show can always go on. We can always pick back up where we left off. This has been Join My Pyramid Scheme podcast. You're here with myself, Uncle Matthew, and Kendal Peter. We're gonna close this out with some of our favorite songs that we've been listening to lately, and some of our favorite movies right now. Matthew, we'll start with you.
Favorite songs and movies?
Yep.
Ooh. Sittin', Waitin', Wishin' by Jack Johnson.
Yep.
It's a good one. Movies, don't really have anything I've watched recently.
Were you mostly watching movies when you were like in theater?
Just kind of here and there.
Okay. Yeah. There's not been a lot of stuff in theater lately. Anything about Jack Johnson is good. Love that new style. Laid back. He was just making music to have fun and to make music. And all of a sudden, a lot of people were listening to his stuff and they liked it because he's a chill guy and he wasn't just trying to get famous. Music and movies.
All right, so for music, I got one right here. Where to go? El Paso by Marty Robbins.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's an oldie but a
Good
goodie.
one.
It's also, thanks to Chaz Erickson, is what my truck is forever named. Isn't that song, Felina? So in El Paso, he talks about
Yeah.
Yeah.
what's
Okay,
been named
yeah.
Felina. So El
Laugh
Paso
at
is
the
one
night
of
with the
my,
eyes of Felina.
yeah,
Wicked and daring while casting a spell.
absolutely. And then for a movie, I just watched Greenland with Gerard Butler. I paid the full $20 to rent that thing last night. Pretty good movie for a Netflix movie. It's actually really good. So I'd recommend that. And The Mandalorian season finale.
Yeah, you gotta watch it.
Really good. Really, Jon Favreau is absolutely putting the team on his back. So serious.
I haven't mentioned, as far as TV series goes, Nicole and I have been watching Cougar Town, which It's Courtney Cox. It's kind of like your middle-aged women's sitcom. Well, it's funny, and we like it. So, yeah, suck it. And music. What about? So Temperature by Sean Paul. That was our jam. That was our jam tonight.
The
Like,
music video is a destination.
I haven't seen it,
And
but
it's they do it in the Salt Flats. It's
really,
Yeah.
okay. Salt Flats, the music video for Temperature. But that's one of the songs that I'll like turn on when I want to just like dance around with kids while I'm making supper. So we listened to that one this evening. So you gotta listen to Temperature by Sean Paul, and I gotta at least recommend one more.
funny enough. I had deja vu about this, but actually.
Deja Vu, 303 and Kesha. Check that one out. That one takes me back to high school. This has been Joe My Pyramid Scheme, the podcast. Thanks for listening with us. If there's anything we didn't quite finish talking about, hey, we'll catch up on it next time.
Well done.
Thanks.
By
I gotta-
303.
Yeah,
Brings me back to middle school, actually.
I gotta go to bed.
dude, that brings me back to high school. Dude, I am struggling.
And it's like you were good, and then you were like,